Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me? Yep, great. So I'm Kristen Body. I'm the Membership and Events Manager here at the Asheville Art Museum. Thank you all for being here today for our member program, which is led by artist, educator, and designer Lei Han. Many of you have probably seen her work Core that was in our opening exhibition, Appalachia Now. And Lei will be speaking in more detail today about her work in new media. It should be really interesting, and I'm so glad that she is able to be here with us today. Before I turn this over to Lei, I just want to go over some housekeeping for all our attendees. So first, all microphones are muted by default. Second, you should note that we are recording today's program. So if you don't want to be recorded, please make sure that your video stays off. You can see that your video is off in the bottom left-hand corner where you see the camera symbol, and that should have a red line through it. We'll be posting this recording in tomorrow's eBlast and to our YouTube channel. And third, if you would like to ask any questions throughout the program, please do so. You can put them in the chat box, which is also found at the bottom of your screen. Lei will be reading those as we go through the program and answering the questions as they come in. And we do encourage you to let us know if there's anything we can do to improve these programs within Zoom. I'll be sending out an evaluation after the program is over to collect your feedback that way. And finally, I do want to thank all our members for your commitment to and support of the museum. While we're closed, we're working really hard to provide you inspirational virtual content that you can enjoy from home. And we do hope to welcome you back to the museum as soon as we get the green light to do so. But if you're able, please do consider donating to the museum, renewing your membership, buying one as a gift, or encouraging friends to become members. Your contributions make it possible for us to continue our work, to build on our Museum from Home initiative, care for our collection, and plan for the future. I'll include a link to the donate page in the chat box for anyone who is interested. So thank you again for being here, and now I'll unshare my screen so Lei can take over. Thanks. And Lei, just remember to unmute yourself too when you're ready.
Yeah, it's really strange. My mouse went disappear, so I have to look where my mouse is. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you great.
Great. Well, thank you, Kristen, for the introduction, and thank you, Asheville Art Museum, for hosting this event. It's such an honor to be here today and to talk about my work. And as you all know, probably from the Appalachia Now, my work, Core, was in the exhibition in April. This actually is last November. I can't believe how much the virus has stopped my time being thinking forward. So I'm still kind of trapped at the early stage of this year in terms of my mindset a little bit. So I wanted to begin my presentation. Kristen, just wanted to make sure, is this screen that I'm sharing right now is just the presentation without the notes and everything, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure. So a little bit about my background. I'm originally from China. So this image is the city where I pretty much grew up and spent my earlier year in, and it's Shenzhen, which is a city right across from Hong Kong, a river across from Hong Kong. And me and my family moved to Shenzhen in the early 1990s, where, in the 1980s, where my father was hired as a university professor in their first university. And he's hired in the art department, teaches painting. So the image I'm showing you on the top is Shenzhen when the city was in the 1970s. So it was a small fishing village with a population of about 70,000 people. And the image in the bottom is Shenzhen today, which, as you can see, is a modernized city with over 12.8 million population. So I went to Shenzhen University, and this is the place where I received my bachelor degree in fashion design. And at the time, my father is teaching in Shenzhen University in their art department as a painting teacher. And my mother worked for the university as a staff member. So this is an image of my father's earlier work, and it's a painting he painted in the 1980s. And as you can see that his work at the time is very representational. And this is the work in the 2000s, early 2000s. And as growing up as a child, I'm always being kind of influenced by my father and his work. And he taught me a lot about art, and also his kind of way of thinking somehow went into a lot of my artwork as well. So you can later see some of the correlations. This image is a representation of the Great Smoky Mountain that he painted in the early 2000s. So this is a neighborhood that I grew up, and it's originally when we moved in, when I was about 9 years old, this neighborhood was very new, and it was one of the earliest group of condo complex was built in this Futian area. And so the skyscraper that you see in the picture originally when we moved in was not there. Instead, it was pretty much a farmland. And the city was a kind of economic test zone in the early 1980s and late 1970s. Has been designated into this kind of economic zone where the foreign investments are attracted to build factories, and as well as basically utilize the labor resource in China. So up until the 1980s, the city has been going on a super fast pace of development. And people from all over China, just like my family, immigrated to this place. And up until today, the city has almost over 70% of the migrant populations. And this is the image when I went back to China after I came to the United States for my graduate school in the early 2000s. And I didn't go back to China for almost 6 or 7 years because all the complication of visa and after school and finding jobs and getting myself settled in a new life and all that things, that life happens basically. So the time that I went back to China after I left in 1999 was 2007. And so the time when I revisit my hometown where I grew up, I can hardly recognize it because all the street has been remodified, had widened, and all the building structures pretty much has been kind of standing up to the test of time, but they're no longer as pretty as they were in my memory. And in 2007, I was invited to participate in this biennial exhibition. Is the Hong Kong and Shenzhen Bi-City Biennial. So it was the first biennial between the two cities. It's really mainly for city planning entities as well as architecture firms and people are practicing the architecture field to be involved with the future planning of the city. And because when I went back to my hometown, this sort of sentimental feeling came up that I always question how people live their life as a migrant worker and what they see their future and what they see home, what's the meaning of home to them, because the meaning of home to me has kind of transformed from time to time. When I was in China and when I came to the United States study as a student, and then now I'm a professor at the university, the place that's associating with me and the meaning of home is transferring over time. So this little video, it was recorded in Asheville. And at the time I was living in a neighborhood, Chance Cove Road. You're probably familiar with Chance Cove Road. So it's a very peaceful little neighborhood. And so this is a farmhouse right across the street where my apartment is. And so I recorded this footage. Basically, it's a time lapse and it's about 6 minutes and 39 seconds. You know, as a person living in Asheville, we get these kind of weather or this kind of phenomenon all the time, fog. Fog is not necessary to be something that a lot of people enjoy. But to me, I feel like it has this sort of philosophical quality of you know, something that really sometimes you can only see beyond if the fog is clear up. So in some ways, this work is a representation of the inner voice of how we want our home to be at the end of the road. So the top left corner is pretty much what makes this piece. It's a max patch developed in this program. It's called a max MSP jitter. So this is a program that allow you to kind of build your little application. So the way how this work works, it's an interactive work. So the settle on the right-hand side kind of tells you that the screen, there's a relationship between the screen, the audio input, as well as the webcam. So the audio input is really testing the level of sound that's in the space. And when the space is become preoccupied with lots of voice and with lots of volumes, or has a very high kind of you know, decibel in terms of sound, then the image start get distorted in terms of the color. So I show you because they don't have a documentation at the site. I wasn't at the exhibition, so they didn't have the chance to document what happened there. So let me show you a screen of what it would look like. So this is the image that's representing when the sound input has been inputting into the computer, the video pixel and the color started to transform. And originally you will see something that's very normal, ordinary, and then you will see these sort of oversaturated kind of a reality has been somehow twisted or kind of readjusted based on the interaction of the people. And at some point, when the volume is getting really high, then it activates the sensors of the camera. And so the visitor will see themselves in front of this role, confronting of this role, and trying to figure out what could be at the end of the road. So this, you might be experienced or have used this AT&T voice-to-speech system, as I am as much. And as somebody that native language is not English, I oftentimes goes to the text-to-speech system, help me to translate, especially names, because names are pretty difficult to me sometimes, especially Western names. So the voice-to-speech system in the early stage of its development, I've already embraced it into my daily life. So I'll go to Crystal for help all the time. And so this piece coming up, it's called Ephemeral Series 3, is directly kind of influenced by how our life has changed because of technology. So this piece is created in 2008, and it has exhibit in the Wide Open Pixel Ports 2008, which in the Korean Art Museum at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. It's using the AT&T voice to text or text to voice system to read the poetry by Percy Shelley. And the poetry is The Cloud, and which was written in the 1820s. So in a way that I am combining a piece of literature, poetry that has its significant roles in history with this completely kind of futuristic tools that we use in a daily life now became kind of taking over our life. And I don't know about you guys, but I have been pretty much waking up to Alexa and use Siri all the time, although sometimes Siri cannot really figure out what I ask it to do, but it's kind of becoming part of the life, my everyday life. And oftentimes I have this feeling that I am seeing artificial reality more so that I'm actually seeing the real reality. For instance, as a child, that I will go out and watch the clouds and build in the sky. But as an adult, I often find that I don't have that kind of luxury and that time to just sit there and watch the cloud forming. So in some ways, Percy's poetry is really sort of emphasizing this metamorphosis of life and the changing of the life and death as a kind of cycle. And it gives the cloud some sort of characteristic, personifies it. Because my work are very, almost all my work are time-based, so it doesn't really make much sense if I just talk about an image over an image. So sometimes it has to refer to the work and hear the duration or see it. So if you, during the presentation, if for some reasons your internet connection doesn't allow you to see the playback of the video smoothly, you can go to my website. It's Lei Han, Leihan design.com, where you can see some of these works and be able to play directly from my site. But in here, I will play some of this, but given the constraint of the time, I might not be able to play all of it. So I will just kind of jump from point to point. And if you have a hard time to follow me on the Zoom, feel free to get on my website and it might allow you a better and more smooth viewing. So I'll go ahead and play this and let me know, Kristen, if you have problem hearing the sound, okay?
I will.
I bring fresh showers for the thirsting flowers from the seas and the streams. I bear light shade for the leaves when late in their noonday dreams. From my wings are shaken the dews that waken the sweet buds every one, when rocked to rest on their mother's breast, as she dances about the sun. I wield the flail of the lashing hail, and widen the green plains under, and then again I dissolve it in rain, and laugh as I pass in thunder. I sift the snow on the mountains below, and there are great pines grown aghast, and all the night is my pillow white, while I sleep in the arms of the blast. Sublime on the towers of my skiey bowers, lightning, my pilot, sits in a cavern under is fettered the thunder. It struggles and howls, it fits over earth and ocean with gentle motion. This pilot is guiding me, lured by the love of the genii that move in the depths of the purple sea, over the rills and the crags and the hills, over the lakes and the plains, wherever he dream, under mountain or stream, the spirit he loves remains, and I all the while bask in heaven's blue smile, whilst he is dissolving in rains. The sanguine sunrise, with his meteor eyes and his burning plumes outspread, leaps on the back of my sailing rack when the morning star shines dead, as on the jagged mountain crag which an earthquake rocks and swings. An eagle at one moment may sit in the light of its golden wings, and when sunset may breathe from the lit sea beneath, its ardors of rest and of love, and the crimson pall of eve may fall from the depth of heaven above, with wings folded I rest on mine airy nest, as still as a brooding dove. That orbed maiden with white fire laden, whom mortals call the moon, glides glimmering o'er my fleece, like floor by the midnight breezes strewn, and wherever the beat of her unseen feet, which only the angels hear, may have broken the width of my tent-skin roof, the stars peep behind her in fear, and I laugh to see them low, and flee like a swarm of golden bees, when I lie dead rent in my wind-built tent, till the calm rivers, lakes, and seas, like strips of the sky fallen through me on high, are each paid with the moon in these. I bind the sun's throne with a burning zone, and the moon's with a girdle of pearl. The volcanoes are dim, and the stars reel, and swim when the whirlwinds my banner unfurl. From cape to cape, with a bridge, like shape, over a torrent sea, sunbeam-proof, I hang, like a roof, the mountains its columns beat, the triumphal arch through which I march with hurricane, fire, and snow, when the powers of the air are chained to my chair, is the million-colored bow, the sphere fire. Above its soft colors wove, while the moist earth was laughing below. I am the daughter of earth and water, and the nursling of the skies. I pass through the pores of the ocean and shores. I change, but I cannot die. For after the rain one with never a stain the pavilion of heaven is bare, and the winds and sunbeams with their convex gleams build up the blue dome of air. I silently laugh at my own cenotaph, and out of the caverns of rain, like a child from the womb, like a ghost from the tomb, I arise and unbuild it again.
So this piece was kind of my early experiment of using computer-generated, just purely computer-generated contents. And it was developed in this software called Adobe After Effects, and using a plugin from a company provided, Red Giant's Portland-based company. They do a lot of visual effects plugins for the movie industry. So the next piece,
Lei, before you move on, someone was asking if you did the manipulation and the quivering of the voice as well.
yes, I have. Yes, that's a very good catch. And the voice was modified as well. And if you will ask me the reason, because I feel like sometimes this voice recognition system is, it's too human. Sometimes it makes me scared. I feel like the machine is kind of taking over the life. So adding the distortion to the voice and kind of remove a little bit the humanness to it and give it more sense of the real being, I think is a machine. That's the real being. Yeah, thank you for the questions. Yeah, feel free to please send questions in. I feel kind of strange, like staring the screen in a hole, kind of not seeing the audience at all. So it's not a regular presentation, a format that I would prefer myself to give. So just—
It's good practice for you when you start classes in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. And I have actually done it, but still it feels really strange to me to do this. Even though I know we might need to do this for the rest of the semester, I still feel like I would rather to be in the space, real space, to see all your faces. So this next piece, you all probably recognize this image, and it's our beautiful Looking Glass 4 in Asheville. So in 2010, I was invited by Jean Felice, an artist friend who is teaching in Wilmington, University of Wilmington now, also in the new media program. So he helped organize the first Rehappening festival in Asheville. which is in the old side of Black Mountain Rock Campma. And so he invited me to participate for this event. And I was very much fascinated by Black Mountain College history and all the pioneers and how this area, Asheville area and the Black Mountain, the Western Carolina beautiful scenery has influenced their work. So I decided to find something local and utilize in my work. So this is the result piece. It's a 4-channel video projection. And I name it 上善若水. This terminology or this words is from the original Chinese classic Dao De Jing, which was written in 400 BC. And it really referred to some of the like characteristic of water, which is, you know, basically it's goodest in every being. Compared to every being, it never compete. And it always kind of willing to go to the lowest place possible, and it sustains the time, and it gives life to all creatures. So this particular piece, although it's not really try to kind of glorify water in a sense, but in some ways, the representation of the water brings to life, and this whole cycle of life, death has been kind of portrayed in this particular piece. So the way how I executed this piece is use this program. It's called a VPT tool. It's a video projection tool. For those of you who's interested in getting into some of the practice, this is one of the earliest tools that's available free for visual artists. There's a lot of limitations, but you know, it gets some of the job done, and it's pretty reliable. And so I use this tool to create this separation of the 4-channel. So each of the vertical layout is being assigned to 1 channel. And I delayed the video feed by 2 seconds. So it's a kind of staggering effect that the water goes from left to right of the screen over time. You will see kind of the progression of the water as it moves through from one space to another space, and it's repeating on itself. So I'll just play a segment of this to give you a little bit of sense of what it looks like. Although I was filming Looking Glass 4, but the work itself is nothing look like Looking Glass 4. It probably reminds you more of like the ocean, a much larger scale of water body other than just a waterfall. So the way how the movement was intentionally kind of playback, not smooth. So this kind of choppy playback kind of constantly reminding you the existence of time. So in a sense that our feeling of time is not like a continuous, smooth progression of time anymore. It kind of forces you into thinking that the existence of time and kind of speak out on its own. And I just absolutely love this little kind of spark comes out from the water. It kind of reminds you, you know, yourself or myself in this large body of water as a single job has been, you know, shine at some point, make some sound at some point. Thank you. I appreciate it, those comments. I'll just read one of these questions. Do you find that technology you have, screen and software, inspire you, shape your end product, or do you imagine the work first and find the technology fitted? Chris, I mean, yeah, Chris, it's always a very good question, because oftentimes I think that it's both, because a lot of times I'm learning new tools and I'm trying to kind of incorporate idea into a tool. And other times I have an idea, but I'm not there. Like I can't really reach that particular production quality. Then I have to wait until the tool is available for me to get there. So this is a piece that I serve as a collaborator in this event, also in one of the re-happening in Asheville. If you have not been to the re-happening event and you know that it's basically an event started out in the 2010 and then progressed as a yearly festival. And there are, it's a one-day festival, which is a pretty common way for new media artists to present their work around the world. So this festival really incorporating a lot of different artists, and including conceptual artists and performance artists, new media artists, and some traditional sense of artists, and create this sort of one-day festivity that in memory of the spirit of the Black Mountain College. So in here, I collaborated on board as a video artist, and the original concept was created by Sarah Brad and Chris Perriman. They're both local, and Sarah is a wonderful photo artist, and Chris is a sculptor. So this kind of work is very different than my original work, because when you're working as a video artist for performance, and you are really feeding the role as a way of help the performer to enhance their performance. So in a sense that the video become an environment or some sort of voice among the other voices, the sounds that in the audience, or everything else is that try to kind of feature this performer. And so these images are really inspired by incarnations and transformations, and also the metamorphosis of life. And as you can tell that the earlier picture shows you the stage of the animals, and as they progress through time, they become human, and then kind of take on this journey. So in a sense that my work kind of aligned with their work beautifully. This image is from a residence that I went to in 2014. This is in a little village in Spain, in the Catalonia region. And the first day I stepped into this town, I just have this sort of surreal sense of emptiness, and kind of feeling the time is frozen, because like small town like this, really there's not much happened. And oftentimes you would sit on the street for hours and you wouldn't see anybody pass by. And it reminded me of many cities and towns in Europe as well as in China, when the modernization happened, and all the strong laborers leave their town and went to the big cities to help build the modernization, and the older people and the kids are left behind. So in some senses, I kind of making the association of myself to those migrants, and how life back home might look like, what they left behind at home might look like. And so during this time, it's summer times, there's a lot of festivals. So this is about the only time you will see like there's lots of people on the street. So this is from San John Festival, which is a widely celebrated kind of festival in Spain in memory of the Holy San John. And so people will be playing firecrackers all night long, and everybody from the neighborhood, and young and old, they will come out and they will celebrate until like the sunrise. And they also burn huge piles of wood fires and kind of just, drink and do all kinds of festivity things. So in some ways, this kind of memory and these imageries placed into my work that I created during the residency. And me and my fellow artists also travel around the region. So this is Montserrat, which is a monastery retreat over see the Catalonia countryside. It's a very beautiful place. And one of the most amazing feature here that I experience is the morning bell from the monastery. The sound of the bells, it's absolutely beautiful. I've never hear anything more beautiful than that. So we spent night over there, and we set up. I was with another artist who's doing time lapse. So we set up our time lapse there, and I set up sound system there. So the piece that I'm working on is a soundscape project. And this is another place we visit. It's called the Tamaray Castle, which is pretty much facing the Mediterranean Sea. And again, a very beautiful site in Spain. When I progressed through all the memories and the imageries that I collected in Spain and try to finalize my work, and two part of the work kind of emerged from that whole experience. One of which is my time in this little town and how it related to my kind of sentimental feelings about my own position as an immigrant or as a migrant person when I move from one place to another place, and what's left behind me, and as well as these people that's in Spain as well, because modernization is happening everywhere, and aging population is happening also quite broadly in Spain as well as in China. And so this piece separated into two portions, and one of which is featuring this town in somewhat time lapse. And I'll just play segment because it's kind of long. So just kind of give you a sense what that might look like. So like I said, that sometimes you will be in the street and nobody will be there, and for like a very long time. So I just set up cameras in various of different places in the street and end up capturing all these kind of time in a sense that frozen, but at the same time, they're not quite frozen. And I'll progress into a later clip so you can kind of see that my interaction with the village people. So these are some of the village peoples that I asked them to pose in front of cameras to document some of the encounters, such as these couple on the coffee shop. We spend a lot of times in the coffee shop, and this person who is a popular visitor of a bar right next to the coffee shop, and he drinks like all day from morning when he woke up to night when he go to bed. So I thought it was a pretty kind of key figure in town, and also this guy who is just one of the sweetest person in the village, and he helped out everybody in the village. So the body of work emerged also into this other piece, which is a soundscape piece that I took primarily the sound that I went to all these different explorations, and I used a Tascam camcorder to record the sound and added the sound together and use a computer to generate these animations. So I'll play some of these animations. Because of time, I won't be able to play all of it, but at least it will give you an idea what they might look like in relation to some of the image that you've seen earlier.
kilometers. Keep left on M420.
So I'll just answer some questions at the same time when I'm playing this. So these images are all generated with computer, so kind of categorized as generative art. And as an artist, I made decisions in terms of the shape and form I wanted to be, as well as the color. And the image itself also took input from the sound. Yes, input from the sound, and somehow the sound is modifying some aspect of the animation. But a lot of my works, in a sense that it's best experience if it's set up in as a backdrop environment where you have some precious time to sit down and to get connected with the piece. And I found it's difficult to enjoy the work when we're trying to rush through our life. So in the sense that these work are, to me, they have meditative quality. When I make them, it really calms me, and it also open up like new, new places for imagination, which we experience a lot in these days. New media technology has been widely available in all kinds of forms and enable people experience things that otherwise they have never been experienced in terms of perceptions and memories and a sense of place and space, as well a sense of self has really been transformed by some of these work and some of these experiences. Yes, it will be amazing if it's on in a huge screen in a dark room. That's really the ideal setup too. Thank you for the comments. So you can see that the village celebrations and the images that taken from the celebrations, they found their way into my work as a way of me memorizing all these moments in my life. Yeah, so I do have this kind of love and hate relationship with technology because if you practice new media, you probably agree with me. Technology is not always reliable. They break down all the time. That's one thing. Another thing is that technology kind of eating up your time. So sometimes you feel like, oh, I have all day. And then all of a sudden you realize, oops, I just spent all day learning something and I didn't gain anything. So yeah, so that kind of love and hate relationship sometimes really kind of, make artists like myself utilizing technology struggle. But luckily that I have been very much into collaboration. And I am by no means the most creative people or the most talented people. I don't play music. That's one thing that I always want to be better at. But I just never really had a push for me to spend the time to be good or learn an instrument. So well, like I mentioned earlier, I probably didn't mention earlier the piece I created for the Blackmon College really happening event. The first piece, the 4-panel piece, was set up right across from a installation that my colleague and friend Wayne Kirby was presenting at the event. So that was actually our first kind of loose collaboration. We didn't plan for it, but it just happened. And his music just really is beautiful. Kind of a support of my visual. So in 2017, I became very interested into the interconnections between art and science and as well as philosophy. And I started to investigate myself in learning about quantum physics and consciousness and how quantum physics and consciousness share some very interesting similarities. And so because of that study, it led to a body of work that kind of removed myself from the computer and more back to the physical, using my hand that is not, has nothing to do with the digital world. So this body of work led me to this residency. I proposed my work to be complete in this residency in Finland. This little town is about 2 hours away from Tampere, which is the second largest city of Finland. And it's really, you know, just a neighborhood, very quiet and peaceful neighborhood. And as you know, Finnish people really know how to live life. So all we do there is meditations and sauna and spend time with nature. And I found incredibly helpful having the time off, being away from technology, because sometimes, you know, especially for creative people, I think that when you get yourself so busy, you just simply cannot be creative. And so during this time of residency, I was doing a lot of explorations and trying to kind of formulate how I wanted to edit these footages, because I already have them filmed when I get to the residency. So and this is a window from my studio where I live and work. And it's right across from a wheat field. The first day, fellow artists and they all kind of went into this exploration trips and trying to figure out what's in the field and go across the field and go into the lake and to see the beautiful view on the other side. So that kind of gave me an inspiration, because we feel oftentimes appear in the early paintings, especially Van Gogh's painting, as kind of a symbolization of life and death, in the sense that this land cultivates life and, you know, kind of sustain age and sustain time, and it's providing. And so I become very interested if I create a little participatory piece and how that's gonna turn out to be. So I set up this camera. It's a 360 video camera in the field, and I wanted to test how this camera will be able to capture things that we otherwise may not feel. Sometimes even in person, you might even not feel it. So I asked the fellow artists to give me something that associated with them. For example, the image on the top second one, which has this little figure, almost like doing meditation. This is an artist in the residency with me, and she is a Japanese artist, and she uses tea ceremony in her performances and connecting tea ceremony into more like a contemporary sort of performance, and also has to do with consciousness and what's our position in this universe, and become aware of oneself. But her pieces are very, in a sense, has a lot of sense of humor, and I really loved her piece. And another person that I'll say here also is that Sunflower that donated for this piece. And she is a writer, and this piece she found in the field, and her writing is oftentimes associated to death. So both artists I kind of find interesting that, you know, somehow they find their way and connections with my work a lot. So I asked them to donate these pieces, and I set up the site where the artist participants, they will go into the site, and there are 2 containers that's in the field, one of which has the scanned image of this object items I collected, and the other one has just basically a box with some empty note cards for them to leave some note. So and turned out to be that these are just some of the documentation of the imageries that they might otherwise missed, but I was in the field, so I was doing the documentations. And later, I shared these pictures with them. And these are some of the words that they have written on the cards that's provided in the box. So this is a little documentation of the artists that seeing themselves in the field and completing the tasks. Yeah, some of the comment we're saying here is like there's a lot of technology involved before you can make something. Yeah, that is kind of a part of being a new media artist. You're constantly adapting to new technology. But I think in some ways it's similar to artists that are continuously trying to expand their toolboxes and trying to come up with a new way of making marks and transforming perspective in front of the audiences. So this is pretty much shot in 360-degree cameras, and the video that you saw is pretty much a documentation, but the viewer are able to interact and they'll be able to explore the scene as the video goes on. They'll be able to see what the person enter and exit the field cannot see. So in a sense that you are in the space with these people together. And in terms of consciousness, does neuroscience about consciousness come into my study? Neuroscience is something that I'm really interested in, which is kind of in the back of my mind. I always think about how am I going to be able to use technology to connect the way how our physical body experience and translate those experiences in imageries that I make. So it's actually part of the things that I'm trying to figure out during this whole residency as well as this body of work. But right now I'm at the stage where I'm really kind of playing with some of the elements that kind of give me a sense of what on a micro level consciousness means. And so this is a body of work that we're trying to figure out the relationship between the form and the formless, the relationship between the things that we can see with our bare naked eye and things that we cannot see. So representations are coming through this body of work that I collaborated with Wayne Kirby, and also Core, the museum exhibit in App Now is one of the work come out of these three. And that piece I collaborated with Wayne and Roy. Both are incredible musicians. And I absolutely love collaboration because it really helped me kind of get out of my own Zoom and to understand how other artists works, as well as it helped kind of move forward my concepts and ideas. So these are some of the experiments that I have. Some of them made it into the final video and some of them didn't. And so this is a setup. Unlike other artist studio, it's really not the best looking studio, but it has the work done. And this is just my little station that I have a camera that has a 100mm macro lens and a bunch of Petri disc that I was trying to do lots of experiments. So I use ferrofluid, I use powders, which has my, I think it's metal particles in them. And I use various different magnets when I do these experiments. So everything in these imageries and these videos are animated by hand. So I literally just animate them using hand. And I'll play a short segment of this and then jump to the next session afterwards. So yeah, that piece and this piece is called Wei Shi, which means that in the process of becoming, is also the result of these experiments. So this image is from SciFest, which is a festival also features new media art. And the picture was taken when it's shown in Russia. And a small segment of this piece. So these images are all animated by hands, literally by hand. So the movement are all created by me, basically modifying the position of the magnets, because all of the liquid that I use has some sort of metal particles in them. So they are reacting to those. They are reacting to those magnets that I use. And later, afterwards, after I filmed everything and I edit everything on the computer. So yes, the end result, there's a certain level of editing that you see are pretty much removing the me with my hands and trying to modify things behind the scenes stuff. Okay, because of time, so we're not going to be able to see all of them, but you're welcome to go on my site and see more. So I just want to kind of talk about the scale a little bit. We didn't have much time left, so I just want to quickly go through some of these images with you. This is core when it was first presented in the Revolt Gallery. Kobe Colwell, and he hosted this special event for me and Wayne and Roy. So we performed there and also showed this as the 3-channel installation. So as you can see that when the scale blow up, it really makes the difference. And this is the image that was documented at the Asheville Art Museum. Beautiful work, and with the help of Chris and Tom, and they did a lot of help in setting this up together. So I really appreciate that technical kind of expertise behind this whole installation. And I think that since this piece is in the Asheville Art Museum, or was in the Asheville Art Museum, so I will not show the piece just because of time. But if you are interested and wanted to see it, and if you didn't get a chance, then please let me know, and I'll find a way to help you to see the piece, okay? And so these are some of the work that are, I'm changing role here instead of just a visual artist by myself and doing things. And I was collaborating with Wayne and Roy on several live audio visual events. So these images are all created using 3D scanners. They can be attached to iPads, and you can scan the reality and later transform the reality in computers. So this series of work, and this particular one I didn't create, but it's from like NASA database. And it's like a free OBJ files that you can download and you can modify however you would like to. And I like to show this one just because my dog is in there and I try to make her stay there and static. And that's the only time she was really being good to me, like trying to stay, not leaving. So, but that's also a kind of a reality that's reflected through the lens of the computers and artificial intelligence. So how they see our world, fragmented reality. And these are some of the kind of things that I created for the audiovisual installation as well. And these are just house plants, normal house plants that I scanned it in and try to create also part of the reality, and how kind of our reality blurs of our actual real reality and the computer generated reality that we are constantly immersed in. And this is a shot of the program that I use for this live audiovisual work. It's called VDM Max. It's a very good program to do live mixing. So as you can see, like a lot of these images, I didn't really care too much about their color because the color really is happening in the mixing. When I was doing the live show, I started mixing them in. So these are the setup when Wayne and Roy and I were working on the 2018 rehappening. We set up the 3-screen installation settings, and we gave a hour-long performance, and as well as show our work. So these are some of the documentation of that. So I'm pretty much serving as a VJ in the sense that creating this visual to complement their sound, which, by the way, both of them are incredible musicians. If you have not been to any of their shows, then please do so in the future. And I think that Wayne plays music regularly in the guitar bar over down the River Arts district. And this is a little segment documentation. So my upcoming project, I'm gonna quickly fit this in the very last minute. This is Stephen and Peter Shanks Museum in the Missouri Botanical Garden. So I am to collaborate with a long-term friend, also an artist, Lauren Wash. And we are asked to be a part of the exhibition that's opening next year. And inspired by this plant, which is a great plant, and considered to be one of the oldest cultivated commercial grape plant in the Northern American. So basically the project is going to be based on the root of the rootstock, so grape rootstock. And I'm at the very early stage of this development. So this is a little segment which I'm only sharing with you guys, and Lauren haven't even seen this yet. So but anyways, it might make it to the show, or it might somehow get modified after I have more thought on it. But I just wanted to show you guys and kind of give you an idea what it might look like. So this piece will potentially become a sculptural piece, an installation that incorporating with new media elements. This is just some of the initial concepts of how I might integrate these vein as well as root structures into the sculpture. I think that my last couple of pieces are really about where can you see more new media if you want to see more new media. So this is a book that I highly recommended for both new media artists as well as people who are in the curatory field. And these are some of the places where you can see more new media art and where some of my work have been presented. And these are some of the museums are on the international levels are focusing on new media art. And some of the online distributors, you can subscribe, become a member, and to have new media display in your own living space. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lei. And just a reminder to everyone who was probably trying to furiously jot down that list, we will post a recording of this video so you can check that list back later, but that was fantastic. And Lei, could you just remind us of your website for those who do want to go back and watch more of your videos?
Yeah, it's LEIHAN design.com.
Great.
I couldn't find just my name, so at the end, that's the only available domain, and I took it.
That makes sense. I tried Googling you and was brought to a bunch of other things. So, so this is great. Thank you so much. We're so lucky to have Core in our collection, and I can't wait to see some of the other work you do. And we have been lucky enough to work with Lei and some of her students on some pieces that we had hoped to present at Art Party, which was canceled in March, but hopefully we'll have another opportunity to share that with you all. And I just also want to thank our members for joining us today. I hope you'll all continue to engage with us virtually through our Museum from Home initiative. I'll send out an evaluation in just a little bit to collect your feedback on today's program. I hope you all stay safe and healthy and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again, and thank you, Lei.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
See you at the museum.